In this section, we will discuss ways to prevent canopy collapses as well as how to practice dealing with them. Flying a paraglider in anything but smooth air will eventually lead to a partial canopy collapse. Before you ever fly a paraglider in any significant thermal lift or turbulence, and before you attempt to deliberately soar in conditions requiring flight at minimum sink airspeed, you must thoroughly master, through simulator and in-flight training and practice, the control of surges, pitch oscillations, and asymmetric collapses. Active piloting involves taking a proactive approach by sensing small changes in the pressure in the brake lines and risers and making corrections prior to a significant surge or collapse. In potentially turbulent conditions, you should fly with a small amount of brake pressure. By having pressure in the brake lines, you can be more sensitive to small changes in the internal pressure of the wing. Active flying involves continuously controlling the brakes to maintain constant and symmetrical pressure in the handles. It is important to note that active piloting involves maintaining symmetrical brake pressure, not symmetrical brake position. When thermaling, it is common for one side of the canopy to start to get light as it encounters sinking flow at the thermal's edge. Again, pull the individual brake handle to maintain the pressure in that side and apply some opposite weight shift to maintain the desired turn rate. Similarly, differences in riser pressure should be countered by weight shift. If a wing starts to lose pressure in lift, it will support less weight on that side and you will feel a slight tilt in that direction. You should oppose the tilt by weight shifting towards the high side while increasing the brake pressure on the lower side. Weight shift towards the higher pressure will help maintain a constant heading with a minimum altitude loss. Common turbulence-induced collapse is a partial collapse of the outer wing panel of one side of the canopy. Such a collapse is not a big deal on modern wings. An unintentional large collapse requires a quick response to avoid an excessive change of heading, which could point you towards the terrain. Even with a quick recovery, the resulting pendulum action could be hazardous. Left uncorrected, a large asymmetric collapse will result in a diving spiral that can be disorienting. The resulting high centrifugal forces and G-loading will require high brake forces to correct and/or great effort to deploy a reserve parachute. There are two steps to remember for dealing with collapses: steer and clear. Steer with opposite brake and weight shift to maintain your heading. Use caution that you do not use too much brake and stall the good side of the wing. Clear the collapse by applying brake on the collapsed side. Beginner and novice gliders usually recover spontaneously. More advanced gliders may need a few sharp tugs on the brake handle. Use caution and do not apply too much brake for too long a period of time, or you risk stalling and spinning the glider. You can train for dealing with such a collapse by intentionally causing a tip fold. You should be able to recover from such a collapse with only minor altitude loss and change in heading. The severity of the tip collapse depends on how many A-lines are pulled and how far they are pulled. For your initial attempts, you should pull just an outer A-line or the outer split A riser if so equipped. With experience, you may induce much larger collapses by pulling the A risers on an entire side. For smaller collapses, you can retain both brake handles in their respective hands. If you are going to induce a large collapse, then you may need to release the brake handle on that side so that you do not inadvertently pull on it while you are pulling down the A riser. Reach up with one hand and grasp the desired amount of A riser just below the rapid links, or as high as you can reach. Pull down at a moderate rate until the outer wing collapses. Maintain directional control and stop any turn by using opposite weight shift and applying opposite brake as necessary. When ready to recover, release the A riser and watch the wing reinflate. If it does not reinflate by itself, either apply the brake at a moderate rate on the side of the collapse until it opens, or if it is ineffective or the canopy appears caught or tangled, pump the brake sharply on the side of the collapse. A frontal collapse occurs when the angle of attack is reduced below the critical value required to maintain the wing shape and the leading edge tucks under. A frontal can occur due to turbulence or can be induced by pulling on inner A-lines. Susceptibility to frontal collapses as well as the resulting severity of the collapse is increased with the use of a speed bar. It is common for a complete reversal in heading to occur during a massive frontal collapse. If you pull on only the innermost A-lines, then only the center section of the wing will collapse and the wingtips will fly forward, forming a front horseshoe. In the front horseshoe configuration, the canopy comes down at a steep angle and slow airspeed. This is not a normal rapid descent method because others offer faster rates of descent with better flying qualities and more consistent recoveries. To initiate a frontal, pull down on the A-risers slowly and evenly until the leading edge collapses. As you pull the risers, you will initially feel an increase in pressure, then a decrease as you near the critical minimum angle of attack. The forward portion of the canopy will tuck under and collapse against the lines. If you pull further, the entire canopy will collapse and rapidly fall behind you. If the frontal was induced by use of the A-risers, then wait for the canopy to momentarily stabilize overhead and let the risers up smoothly and quickly. The canopy will normally reinflate immediately. Be prepared to apply brake input to correct for any resulting forward surge. Many turbulence-induced collapses are momentary in nature, and an aggressive brake application may retard the canopy excessively and cause the resulting forward surge to be more severe than it would have been if left alone. In an accelerated collapse, the canopy will rapidly move aft. Ensure that the speed bar is fully released and be ready to provide judicious use of brakes to control the resulting surge. If you fly in strong winds, you greatly increase your chances of encountering strong turbulence. Do not fly in high winds, at low altitude, or downwind of terrain. The turbulence can be severe. If you want to enjoy paragliding over the long term, you need to develop flying skills as well as judgment skills. Learning to properly interpret the weather and sight conditions is of paramount importance. Remember, it is much better to be on the ground, wishing you were airborne, than to be airborne and wishing you were on the ground.